Rasheen. For the panel discussion of this session, I would like to welcome once again Mr. Imed, who will be joining us virtually, and Professor Rasheen. The discussion will be moderated by Mr. Upul Jinadasa, the Chief Operating Officer at South Asia Gateway Terminals.
Imed, are you online with us?
Yes.
Great.
I'm with you.
Very good. I think after two very great presentations, I think Imed shared with us the strategy and then the why it matters for the industry to focus a bit more on heavily on the cyber security given the current situation. And also Professor Yassin shared with us some of the cyber attacks that took place in the industry in the recent past. And both of them, there are two things that they shared. One thing is that, look, it affects the customer trust and your top line. And then the other thing is that the cyber attacks have increased, 400-fold. So now this is something that we all have to be mindful and we have to be acting on it, take it seriously. Now, let me do a bit of an introduction here. Now, the IT evolution in the automation and the digitalization in the ports and shipping started way back in about 1970s, 1980s. And those days that we had legacy systems, which are much more closer and bespoke kind of systems. And then it evolved since then to current day modern, heavily distributed, extremely open, and the internet-based, very tightly integrated systems across the world. So the more you open your systems, anything, that you invite trouble. So now the systems are also the same. Now what happens today is that the industry has evolved, that it is the global system, a global industry, and then connectivity is very important. So that brings us a lot of issues with regard to how do we ensure our businesses, our systems, or the ICT ecosystems are much more secure, resilient, and robust. So I think the both presenters shared a lot of insights about how to make it much more secure and robust and resilient. And the audience is free to raise whatever the questions that they have. So we can get Imed and then Professor Rasheen to answer those questions. So please feel free to raise your hand, and then we will arrange a mic, and then the both presenters will answer your questions. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, let me ask the first question to Imed. Imed, I think you rightfully went through your presentation why it matters for the ports and shipping industry. Now, most of these industries and whether it is a small enterprise or a big shipping line, they are currently using certain systems. What are the do's and don'ts that they should do even if they don't have the framework that you proposed in your presentation?
Yeah. So it's a very good question, yeah, and I think this is the reality. I mean, having the frameworks, etc., is great, but the reality sometimes is a bit different, yeah. We have companies, organizations, and well-established, let's say, business operators who have been in this industry for a long time, and probably in terms of maturity and in terms of let's say, adherence to these kind of standards, they are not at the highest level in terms of maturity, I would say. Having said that, there is always ways how to protect the business and the operations. And I would say, again, if I refer to the framework that I was mentioning at the beginning, protecting the perimeter is your first line of defense. Very simple. If we know that we have weaknesses inside the perimeter, if we know that we have a lot of work that still need to be done to protect the inside, to protect the assets, to protect the operations, first step would be you need to protect the outside. You need to protect your perimeter. And for that, as I said, it's always the combination of this magic triangle. There is no one leg of the triangle that will make magic, that will do magic. You need definitely to invest in technology. You need to invest in people, and you need to invest in the processes. Establish the processes, bring the tools, and hire the people that will help protecting your perimeters is your first line of defense. Is that the end of the journey? No. That's the first step in a long marathon. But when you protect your perimeter, it gives you a bit of time. You're buying a bit of time. So you can focus on the inside and start doing all that is needed to protect the inside of the inside of, let's say, your organization and the inside of your environment. There are other options that are also available, but those are, I would say, the easy options. So I saw many companies, they adopt a kind of cybersecurity insurance policy. So instead of addressing the risks and addressing the topic, we cover it in a different way. We buy an insurance policy, we hope and we pay a lot of money for it, and we hope that we'll never use it. Again, this is for me a way of buying some time, but it's not addressing the root causes of problems and the risks that you have.
Thank you, Imed. My next question to Professor Rasheen is that he shared with us lots of cases of recent cyber attacks into the industry entities. Can you pick up one and share with us as a case, like how it happened and then how the recovery process and what damage it did to that organization, so that the audience can learn from that?
When you look at this, the closest port, JNCT actually, Mumbai, right? You know that, the Silicon Valley of IT is basically not anymore in US. It's in India, apparently, right? So being a IT, I would say, sophisticatedly qualified professionals around in the trade, and quite a lot of infrastructure has been developed. And we saw basically a huge, impact. And it took about 2 weeks, basically, JNC to recover. And it was a malware and a ransomware. And, there was so many, incidences within that short period of time, right? And top of that, I think you would have heard about, Mumbai, for 5 minutes it was in dark, right? And that was a Chinese, attack, apparently, right? So geopolitics is also playing a major role in terms of crippling economies, crippling companies. And more you are vulnerable, actually, more we grow, more we are prone to growth, we are supposed to basically encounter all these kind of, attacks. And where JNCT is concerned, right, it took a long time basically for them to address, though, but there was no resilient team, there was no resilient plan, and there was basically a first defense line, and there was a second defense line, and there was no third defense line, actually. So we had to look at covering the perimeter with, we all of us have in companies a firewall, which is, called the first perimeter. And the second defense line, basically, we try to, go a little beyond that. And the third, basically, we try to, hire a company which you could, do on behalf of us. Sri Lanka also has, that capability, but only thing is we'll have to enhance their capabilities and give them a chance. And yesterday I was speaking to 3 companies. They have the infrastructure. Only thing is we hardly use them and make use of them, because we think of the cost factor. We always, look at, cost, and we don't look at cost as investment. So this is our issue, actually.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience, please? You can raise your hand and we can arrange a microphone. I think Rohan has purposely scheduled this presentation just after lunch, so that everybody is in their whatever the mood, so no questions comes. Yeah. Okay, let me ask another question now. The Sri Lanka is in the verge of implementing a lot of digital initiatives, and one of the biggest initiatives that we are pursuing these days is the national single window. It's like getting customs, the ports authority, shipping lines, airlines, the shippers, consignees, everyone getting connected together and then form a kind of a single window digital cargo clearance system. So this kind of a system, when you implement it, now listen to your presentation that there are a lot of planning that we have to do at the inception to ensure that we take care of the cyber security aspect of it. So what is your advice to us on that?
Very good, and I think Sri Lanka again is not an exception. We observe the same trend from all the countries almost over the last couple of years. So as we speak today, I was just before this meeting, this call, I was in another call with the colleagues from Bahrain, meeting with the Port Authority, and this afternoon I have another meeting with the port authorities in India. And because this industry and this business is a strategic sector for any country, for any nation, this is why we see the authorities and the local authorities trying to secure that strategic sector. It's vital. If this industry and this operation, this business stops and the supply chain stops, meaning you're supplying you're stopping the supply of foods, imported foods. You are stopping the supply of medications. You are stopping the supply of very critical raw material for the local industry. It's extremely strategic and extremely critical. Having now the governments and regulatory bodies across the different countries getting to that level of attention to control or to keep an eye, let's put it this way, on the overall resilience of this sector is a very good, for me, I see it as a very good reaction to the increasing threats. Even though I see it, to my taste, I see it's coming a little bit late, but it's always better late than never. And I think now on the operators in the different countries is to get prepared for that. Get prepared in the sense that will be your readiness to protect the country is the equivalent of your license to operate. Because what we saw in other countries where they already established these kind of frameworks, if an operator within this strategic sector is not ready to be at the level it should be, simply will be isolated. Because it will represent a threat for the whole ecosystem and of that country, of that nation. So getting prepared for that is extremely important. And what does it mean? It means the earlier you understand what are the requirements and the prerequisites, the better you can prepare your plans, how you're going to bring your operations and your cyber posture to the right level that is expected at nationwide. But of course, it comes also with certain complexity. The plans and the guidelines that are being released by the different local authorities, it covers many aspects of the operational environment, from the control of the data traffic to the, let's say, the control of, or real-time control of eventually the threats and the data leakage, to eventually literally identifying if there's any kind of industrial spying or sabotage. And that comes also with some challenges, especially for the, let's say, like multinational and international operators within a certain country. They have also some other internal, let's say, rules, policies, like the data protections, like the international export of data, etc. So it comes with some challenges, but these are nice challenges to work with. So to summarize and to make it short, as an answer to your question, be prepared. Make sure that you understand what are those prerequisites from the local authorities, and get or upgrade your game and your posture at the earliest. That will help you to make sure that you participate in securing the overall national strategic sectors.
Thank you. Any questions, please? No? I'm sure that, in Sri Lanka, we are on the verge of digitalizing everything. So now, the lot of insights that we heard through the presentations today, so I think we should be able to, pick it up and then see how we are doing, and then, to clarify from the two speakers, is there anything that we are in doubt? please feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll arrange a microphone. Um, uh, Professor Rashid, you mentioned about the firewalls. But one of the typical thinking in the industry is that, okay, any organization is that you can just put a firewall and then in between, and then you have the perimeter is protected, and so that we are okay. Is that correct, or is there anything more any company should do to establish a proper cyber security framework?
Well, actually, yeah. Firewall is the basic need and the basic requirement, but more you grow, I mean, you may have enough and more, players and PC users. So then the first defense line, which is this firewall, is not going to, be sufficient, or not going to address these type of, attacks. And these are good basically even for individual, PC users. And if you are really, focusing at, we'll say for an example, if it is a $500 million company or a $1 billion company, actually, we have companies in Sri Lanka, how they are working on it. And I am in contact with them apparently. And they have, resilient teams, they have task forces, they have teams basically to, educate or, have brainstorming sessions on and off. They have drills. So, we have to look at, beyond cyber, firewalls actually.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Okay. Ahmed, one of the things I picked up from your slides is that you spoke about the disaster recovery plans and then a total business continuity plan. So the recovery in case, in the event that you get affected, so how do you recover fast? So can you elaborate a bit more on that? Because the DRPs generally are defined but never used. Yeah. And the BCP is also that we think that we have a resilient BCP, but if you don't practice it or use it, that you don't know what it is. So can you share some of your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a very good observations. Yeah, you mentioned that we have DRPs, but they are simply, text on a paper. And I can tell you, yes, from my experience, this is what I observed in a lot of companies. It's most of the time organizations will take the DRP as a ticker box kind of exercise, because internal audits or external audits, they said you need to have a DRP in place. And then we build a document, we put together some documentations, and then we tick the box that we are done with that audit findings, and then we forget about it. The purpose of having a DRP is, it's like how can I say, it's like the white war. So you test your capabilities continuously. Are you ready to go for a war? And I'm sorry, I'm keep using some kind of, army kind of wording, etc. That's part of my background as well. I'm coming from that background, but that's exactly the purpose of having a DRP. DRP is building the muscles within the organization, so you know how to continue to operate when bad things happens. That's for me the purpose of a DRP. If you don't have those muscles, you'll be acting blindly when the incident happens. You'll be trying to figure out during that very stressful moments and period how to recover, how to get your operations back. And I can share some examples, real life examples again, from a ransomware attack on one company. After the incident, everybody said, okay, we're gonna recover within 2 hours. And they released official communication to the local authorities and to the customers that the operations are down will be down for 2 hours, and they will recover after that, based on an assumption and a metric that has been defined on a DRP, a disaster recovery plan, that has been defined 3 years ago. It has never been updated. It has never been tested. Guess what happens? After releasing that formal communication, after almost 2 hours, they realized that they cannot rely on that disaster recovery plan. They realized they have no visibility on the infrastructure that is deployed. They realized that they have no visibility on all the changes that has been applied in all the assets that are deployed. They realize literally that significant components of very automated assets has not been even captured on that disaster recovery plan. And that led basically to trying to be creative, but unfortunately, when you're trying to be creative in a war situation, you lose the battle. So for me to reposition this DRP topic, consider it and see it as if you're sending your army, your troops, to the front line without guns, without weapons. What's your hope? Are they going to win the battle? No. You're literally sending them to hell. That's exactly an organization that doesn't build a DRP, or they build a DRP just to tick an audit box to say, yes, we are done with that, and then we keep it in the drawer and we forget about it. So, and some good practices from my personal experience. A DRP should be reviewed fully at least once a year. At least once a year. What infrastructure is covered there? What applications is covered? What are the critical components for the continuity of your operations? Because in case of incident, you don't need to recover 100% of your infrastructure and applications. Probably you need 50%. What are these 50% that are the minimum viable components for the continuity of your operations? So review it at least once a year and test it at least twice a year. Your digitization journey, your automation journey is so fast that you're introducing new components, new software, new automated devices, new assets, almost on a daily basis. So how you can make sure that whatever you tested 6 months ago is still relevant this time? So I will leave it here. Just a couple of guiding, let's say, indicators. A DRP to be defined and reviewed once a year, and to be tested twice a year.
Thank you. I think that's one of the key messages that we would like to give you, right? No point of having a DRP or a BCP in the back burner, and then unless it is reviewed, as Ahmed quite rightly said, at least once a year, and then rehearsed twice a year, right? When it comes to a situation and you are in panic mode, and if you know you have a workable DRP, then your recovery is faster, right?
Yeah.
And thank you, Ahmed. Any questions, please?
Sure.
Looks like everybody is confused, right? But I don't think the tea is just after this event, as you'll have to wait for another session. So before that, let me ask you another question from Professor Rasheen. Now, whatever the technology or the firewalls or the filtering or the monitoring or tracking, the AI and analytics or whatever, you cannot give 100% guarantee that a malware or a ransomware or whatever cannot infiltrate into your systems. So what are the things that the people can do to prevent the infections or the attacks coming into their own organizations?
Now, when you look at an organization, you will find only about a team of, IT guys, right? Qualified IT guys. 99% of them are going to be laymen, right? And all these IT professionals basically will not be able to come to your computer, PC, and look at, how many emails you are getting actually per day. And these cyber, criminals act in such a way, they even impersonate yourself and impersonate basically another friend of yours. And you may be looking at it or seeing it as a familiar email or a familiar, message, and you can, click that. And that can be another malware, and that can be another ransomware. So it is important for each one of us, basically, every one of us, to be very critical. And if you are not familiar, just to, keep away with that email or keep away with that message and avoid it and get your, rescue IT guy or, whomever to remove it from the server. So that would be the best way basically to, counterattack. And as you know, you can do it in companies in the corporate sector, but if it is a huge infrastructure, right? Now we are talking about national security, and we have a huge intelligence community for example, in Sri Lanka. And when there's a terrorist attack, right, intelligence gets the information actually. But you cannot expect that kind of an information to get, what do you call, in advance when it comes to cyber attack actually. Because cyber terrorism is another way of basically putting, crippling economies and putting the countries basically, out of the picture, right? So, we have to be very careful. That's what I said, each and every one of us should be committed basically of, what we see and how we, react to those, emails and messages, whatever we get, even on phones basically. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting. One other question I meant to you, you mentioned about in your presentation that the cyber threats are not exclusively from outside, and there could be some the threats within as well. Now, some of these things like the USB drives and giving access to unknown people and things like that. How do you control? How do you? What are the best practices that you can adopt in an organization?
Yeah, so those are basically some of the, let's say, fundamentals that need to be established in any organization. It doesn't require a lot of investment, doesn't require any advanced expertise. It's part of the, how can I say, the fundamentals for securing the assets inside your perimeters. I'm sure that any one of the participants here and the wider community, we're all using Microsoft Windows as our operating system. I'm not worried about the iOS, the Apple iOS, that's more secure, but specifically the Windows, let's say, platform and operating system. It is coming now as a standard with a feature that can be set up very easily within the system itself, on the machine itself, to block access to the USBs or any port on the machine. Any port. You can set up and configure the workstation of all the users in a way, by defining basically very, very few steps. Yeah, it's very, very simple, and the IT guys, they know that. How you block the access to all these ports, to all the devices, or to the Bluetooth, or to the Wi-Fi, so you can limit whatever you want as external threat to a workstation, to a laptop, to a desktop. Very simple. The USBs and the mobile devices in general, mobile storage device, sorry, they're one of the most frequent, let's say, generator of cyber threats. People work at home on their personal desktops. They continue work overnight or during the weekend. They save their documents and files on a USB. They go back to the office. They connect to the corporate, let's say, machine. They plug their USB. Poof. Then the magic happens. The black magic happens. And that's definitely the one source of risk. Yeah. Other elements, you have a vendor or a supplier who comes to visit you for a meeting, and he's coming with a proposal, or he's coming with a document or a contract. Okay, how can I send this to you instead of sending it by email? Assuming that your email system is protected, I'll put it on a USB stick and please use it and plug it on the stuff, and let's go through that document. Another bomb that you're throwing inside your perimeter. Some colleagues, they're exchanging some documents or some whatever informations, and instead of having these, especially for the huge files, and whether these are graphics or videos or whatever, or AutoCAD documents, heavy documents, it's easy for them to save a copy on this and then pass it to my colleague, and it goes there. So all these ports connected to your workstation are sources of threat, of cyber threat and cyber attacks. How to protect that? It's very easy. It's built into the operating systems. Very basic. You can block all those perimeters and drivers so that there is no threat that comes from there.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. And my last question to Professor Rasheen is, now we have spoken about a lot of technology that we have to adopt, and then the behavioral changes that we have to practice to ensure that our systems, our respective ecosystems are safe and secure. Now, you can't do it free. There is a cost to it. So how do you now say, when you talk about it, sometimes the industries or the organizations feel that is too much. And sometimes, like many organizations have realized the value of it and they're investing in the right technologies. And can you elaborate a bit more on that? Like the approach towards the costs with regard to cyber costs, the cyber security? Sorry.
Yeah, I would term it as basically investment, right? All of us, use this terminology called cost. It is an investment, right? End of the day, it is going to invest in your business. It is going to be a long-term investment of your business. And for an example, now I have a couple of companies who, have invested in this huge colossal amount of money. But end of the day, in their P&L, in their, what do you call, in financials, it is peanuts for them, right? For an example, for a $2 billion US dollar company, the investment is $250,000 US. So in percentage, how much it is? For a $2 billion company, investment is $250,000 US. It is 0.0025%, right? But the risk what you are taking is huge. Now, you are talking of basically, cyber criminals, will not look at a 2 billion or a 1 billion company. They will look at a 5 billion, 10 billion company worldwide and try to, attack them. But their cost, their investment is very marginal. So there are smaller companies and investment is rather very, it's very small. Investment is very small end of the day. So these are the, fear psychosis basically people have in mind that we should, not go for these things. These are high-end stuff and we should keep away. And if you keep away, you will not be competitive and you will not have the trust of your customers. You will not have the trust of the confidence of the, the vendors or the suppliers. So, it's all the stakeholders needs to be engaged in this. And we'll have to look at it as a team to, defend. So, as I always say, prevention is better than cure. Once it has happened, right, it is going to be costly for you to come back again. And you are going to, revamp the entire, hardware, the software, and even the whole, system of your corporate sector, of your company or an organization. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Rasheen and then Ahmed. I think we have come to the conclusion of this panel discussion. Any questions, any last minute questions? Yes, let me conclude by sharing the gist of today's presentation. So both Ahmed and the Professor Rasheen shared with you what's happening in the industry and how the industry is taking care of this particular threat. As they quite rightly said, there is no 100% guarantee technically that you can make it safe. But there is a behavioral aspect of it. People also have to have a responsibility, greater responsibility, that you have to behave in a manner, responsible manner, that you don't bring in attackers, inviting them into your own organizations. So another thing that when you go back and then your respective organizations, they're taking time to patch up the computers and things like that, and then they are borrowing time from operations, whatever the functions. So that is to ensure that it is safe and then secure. So this is not to do the IT's job, but that to ensure that like the whole organization is safe. But the next thing is that we are talking very, very, very heavily about the digitalization, single window and all whatnots. Once you have re-engineered processes with the digital basis, right, and any disruption on these digital systems, you can't go back to your old the systems because the people are not there, the processes are not there. It's completely unavailable. So therefore, you can't avoid disruptions to your top line or the customer's trust or the confidence if that happens. So better be ready. You have to have your disaster recovery plans in place, rehearsed, as Ahmed rightly said, at least twice. And you have to have your BCPs, business continuity plans, ready and tested, and then everybody is fully aware of it. So when you face this kind of situation, in case, right, you won't go panic. You are ready to face it. And then, as Ahmed quite rightly shared with you, the point framework, so you can put it into action and then recover. So what Professor Rasheen also mentioned, the impact that the recovery takes from some of those attacks that he was talking about, right, can be minimized if you have proper readiness, right? So thank you very much. And then Rohan, over to you. And thank you very much, Imed and Professor Rasheen, for your valuable presentation. Thank you.